talk to Big Little Feelings. Kristen and Dina, I am just like freaking out that we get to talk to the two of them. This is just amazing. And we are going to talk just about travel, the holiday craziness that we are quickly approaching. Next week is November, which is just wild, and a lot of questions just about how to manage holiday travel, just holiday stress factors in general, whether it's travel, family, screen time, sleep. So we're going to talk about all of those things. And as soon as Big Little Feelings comes on here, we're going to talk with them about all of these things. My hair is in braids today because I just couldn't deal with it. And I'm also trying to get my daughter to do her hair in the morning before I drop her off at school. And so we have to just, practice some bribery with that. So as soon as Kristen and Dina come on here, let me know and we will get right to it. There are... Kristen and Dina also just launched a new podcast, which I've been listening to, and it's really awesome. It tackles all things parenting and all the things that kind of keep you up and thinking as a parent, especially a parent of toddlers. So give that a listen, and also just checking out their account because they just talk about parenting and two toddlers. I find it to be really helpful and super informative, and also just supportive in a really wild time. Hi. Good morning. I was just watching all of your guys' interviews. I'm like so grateful that you took time in this like crazy week of promoting so many exciting things for you guys. Thank you.
Oh my gosh, we're so excited.
Yeah.
We were like, when we saw it come in, we were like, oh my gosh, really?
Yes.
Really? Yeah, so we're excited.
I mean, this is like a really big deal for all of my mom friends. It's like I'm talking to like the biggest celebs in the game. So this is like really just so fun, and to just see people. Yeah, I know. Like
we just rolled in from drop off. We'll drop off together, by the way. The same cool. You just rolled in here and set up the tripod. So
that's amazing.
That's flattering.
Well, thank you so much. I want to just like start. I was just talking about your podcast, which is amazing, and feels like that was just like the most natural, needed transition for you guys to go into with all of the awesome information that you guys put out on your Instagram account. And I know so many parents are so grateful for just that dynamic, and also having the guys' perspective of just like fatherhood in there too is really fun to just see. I want to just also talk about how you guys started, because so many parents, like I feel like mom groups have these mom chats where we now all send your guys' content back and forth to each other, and you guys made it into a business. So let's just start there, how that came to be.
Yeah. Let's see. It was back in 2020, long ago. So I was practicing as a child therapist, like full time, and Kristen, mom of two toddlers.
Yeah, 3 and 1, so little ones.
Yeah, we've been best friends since we were 14. Yeah. So we're texting all the time, and we just kind of found ourselves going back and forth, like, okay, got to take the pasty away. Like, what are we going to do? Or like, starting to hit. What do we do? Yeah,
it came from a real organic need, especially as myself, somebody who read all of the books and had all of this stuff. But when I was in the moment with a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old, and I'm exhausted, and I just need a quick, like, please tell me what to do really quickly. And then also validate that, like, I'm not completely messing them up if, like, I make a mistake or I don't do it perfectly. We just saw there was just this huge need that I felt as a mom, and Dina also even felt as a child therapist. There really wasn't anything short, quick, relatable, doable, easy for us parents out there.
When your kid is crying, it's so hard to think back about what you read and then like, okay, so wait, what do I say?
Yeah, no, it's so true. And I feel like also everybody is trying to make it work and get all this real-time advice, but especially during a time like COVID, where so many people were isolated, and also raising kids. Like I became a mom during COVID, where you're kind of like what is this generation of, like, what are these kids going to be like? Like, are we keeping them home? Is this crazy? How are we going to like interact them with other children and other people? So there was so much real-time advice that was coming in through your guys' account that was just like so perfect for so many different parenting phases. And then especially for those of us who were raising children during like the thick of COVID, was like a wild time where support was so needed.
Yeah. And we were all isolated too, right? And I think something that happened too, just in social media in general, which was amazing, I think, as a mom, is like prior to 2020, when we first started, everything that I saw as a mom was really like glossy and selfie ring lights and these perfect activities. And the mom had a blowout. And I just remember having postpartum anxiety with my firstborn, who like wouldn't sleep on top of me. And I'm scrolling, and I felt so bad about myself. And I feel like when we came on, we made a real commitment to show like real and raw. And I think social media went that way after 2022 also, because we were all just like, we're alone. So now through social media, we have to show up in a more like authentic, together kind of way. And I feel like that was sort of a beautiful thing that happened on social media in the pandemic.
Yeah.
You guys continue to be really surprised by the amount of people who just send your content back and forth to each other as a form of like support. Honestly, like I feel like when you see the two of you talk about certain things, and as moms or just people who are around children, even people that I know who don't have kids but are around my kids or other kids, send your guys' posts and content back and forth to each other, honestly, like as a form of support and kind of banding together against just like the craziness of parenting as like partners in it. Is that surprising for you guys, or what's that like?
I think so. I mean, I don't think we ever thought it would become as big as it did. And it still feels like we're in the DMs all the time. It feels like we're just chatting with our best friends.
Yeah, it's surreal. I think the scale is surreal, but it's also, I mean, it's just incredible. It's a dream come true.
Yeah.
Amazing.
We do have such a nice community.
It's a really nice community, and also a really supportive community, especially for how judgmental and critical the mom world can be in a lot of areas. And you guys talk about that. I mean, social media is an amazing place, and it's also a place where people can offer their opinions and thoughts about certain things that can get to be challenging, especially as like a new mom trying to do, you know, figure it out and do your best. And you have people who are commenting on like the wrong sippy cup, or just like the wrong food or whatever. Is that a big topic for you guys?
Oh yeah. I mean, that again was half of what Big Little Feelings was born to be. Half is tips and what do we do, and oh my God, and I'm drowning. And the other half really was like, there's got to be one space on the internet that could be judgment free of moms. Back when it was 7 years ago when I had a kid, so the ancient days, remember the Facebook mommy groups? Oh my God, like the sleep ones, that was like the straw that broke the camel's back. So we almost every day, whatever we're doing and talking about anything, the thread is like, this is non-judgmental. You can mess this up. You don't even have to take this advice. Throw it in the garbage. Like however you show up, it is great. You know, like take these tips if you want to, throw them out. And we even try to, even in our friendship, it's really organic and authentic, which I think comes out when you follow one person. Then you can kind of judge yourself against that one person, and we do it to ourselves. You know, I see one mom that co-sleeps until 7. I'm like, oh my God, am I ruining them? So it's kind of nice that we are very opposite, and our friendship is really what the core of Big Little Feelings is, which is, you want to do a home birth non-medicated, girl, I'm going to be there. I'm going to be watching it. I'm going to be helping him come out. And then you're going to help me get my epidural in the hospital. You know, like there's no judgment allowed, like in our community.
For you is the right fit.
That's right.
Yeah, I love anybody who has that kind of mentality or mindset, especially with, well, I mean, with everything in life, but especially with parenting. It's like, just do what works for you. And it's crazy how some people get so, you know, worked up about changing the way someone chooses to do something, even if it doesn't work for that. Like it's just so nice to be able to have a community in a space that you guys have created, which is, you know, totally because of the two of you, where you really have that kind of a vibe, which is really just needed in all areas of the world in general. But just like this idea, like you can do your thing, I can do my, like everybody can kind of exist together. I want to talk about travel because I know everybody's really anxious to learn about travel, especially because next week is November, which is insane. And
Can't believe
the
it.
holidays, I know, like, how did that happen? The holidays are coming up. But before we go into that, one of the things that I feel like you guys talk a lot about is this, just if it's called mindful parenting or gentle parenting, just this awareness of, as parents, maybe how we were raised, how we choose to raise our kids because of that, if it's differently, if it's similar, and different moments, as you're saying, where we kind of go back to whether it's books we've read or your videos, your content, and apply that to our parenting styles. As somebody who has, you know, a mom that I talk to about everything, this way of parenting and communicating with our children is very different than the way all three of us were raised. It's, you know, a different form of parenting. And there's also this big conversation about, like, that's too much of soft parenting. It's too much of, like, this, you know, idea of our kids getting away with everything, which I don't agree with. I think, you know, having this gentle and mindful parenting is incredible and such a gift that we're giving to this next generation. But for parents who have their kids' grandparents who might not understand the differences there, or just like the shift there, can you talk just a little bit about that and kind of the differences between them?
Yeah, I mean, I can kick us off in the moment.
Sure.
Sit, Mom, as we do. I think I love this conversation, by the way. It's like my favorite conversation. First of all, we don't love the term gentle parenting because A, it doesn't encapsulate what we necessarily do. There's nothing wrong with gentle parenting. I don't know about you, but there's nothing gentle to me about picking up a screaming, flailing toddler to leave the park, because you mean, and you're holding, you're firm in your boundary. Like, it's time to leave the park now, and you're swooping them up and you're carrying them out. That doesn't feel very gentle to me. It does feel very confident. So, like, I feel confident in my parenting. I feel like I'm the leader of this home. So I think what's very interesting is that grandparent generation, or those people that kind of think we're too soft, or we're all raising soft kids. It's ironic because we're all working towards the same goal. We all want really strong kids. And I don't think the research was there in the 80s. It's okay. Like, it just was not there. And now we know that when you kind of toughen kids up by using tough language, and you're tough on them, and you're punishing them, we know that later on, we're not really teaching real skills, right? We're not teaching them, when you get mad, how can you have a healthy outlet to channel that anger, right? It's really simple. So it's funny that we're all walking in the same direction. And it's sort of like, when I talk to the grandparent generation, it's like, there's just now sort of a research-backed way in which we are showing up very sturdy. We are not their friends. We are not letting them walk all over us or run the household. Right. We are holding those boundaries. We are showing up really sturdy. We're still the leaders, guys. And we know that shoving down emotions and feelings is not healthy. And that's all we're tweaking. That's all we're tweaking.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I think that there was, like, this big shift for me in understanding that your kids' feelings, if it's sadness, anger, happiness, whatever it is, that it's not your job as parents to just hurry up and fix it, whether that's, like, you know, kind of the old way of, let's go get ice cream, or, like, here's a piece of chocolate, or whatever it is, to kind of distract them away from these feelings, but allow them to, like, feel the feelings, and then give them the tools to manage that or cope with that, starting from toddlerhood, right?
Yeah. And, like, just every time I ever try to think of anything in parenting, I try to zoom out 30 years, right? And I love what you just said, which is, we're sort of inadvertently then teaching our kid, when I feel sad, what I should do is, I should eat a bunch of chocolate. I'll feel better, right? If you're distracting them or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Or on the opposite, if we're punishing, or we're kind of sending them to alone time or something like that, now your kid has put 2 and 2 together. So when they're 30 or 35 and they feel sadness, they'll be like, like, this is bad. This is really bad. I'm going to go sit alone and like beat myself up. Like I shouldn't be around people. I should go beat myself up. And so we just want it to really correlate, right? Like when they feel sad in 30 years, we want them to call up their friend. We want them to call up somebody that they love and they're close to, because when they were young and they felt sad, they had somebody that they loved and they were close to right next to them. It's
That's
really just
why
so
in the
fun.
early years, the way we respond to them, the way we talk to them, take care of their big feelings, make them feel about their own feelings, our voice becomes their inner voice. It starts to shape the skills that they bring with them through life. And we know from research that when we don't learn coping skills, when we don't learn to feel okay with our all natural feelings, that's when we become at risk of depression, anxiety, trouble in relationships. So teaching them these skills early on and learning that all feelings really are okay. It's just about learning how to share them and let them out and deal with them in a safe way.
When you're teaching these, these tips to parents and they take them in and then they have a moment where their kid is hysterical, kicking, screaming, upset about something, when is the best time to be teaching these things? Because there's so much information about like when your kid is hysterical, their brain lid is flipped, there's nothing coming in to being received. And you guys have posted about that before, which I was like, that's such a good point. Like she's not going to like my daughter's not going to understand a lesson when she's laying on the floor, crying about something. So and these kids are also, they're toddlers, they're little and they're young. And when would you say is like the best time for parents to be letting these lessons or these coping mechanisms land in their kids?
Yeah, exactly. So when we, all humans, kids, adults, when anyone is really, really, really upset, what ends up happening is the lower parts of their brain are active and not the thinking part, which is up on the top part of the brain. So they actually can't take in new information. They can't even hear you. They're not going to be able to talk or think or like use a new tool that you're trying to tell them to. We just need to get through that storm in a way. We're thinking about safety. We are there for them. And then later, once they're calm, once the moment has totally passed, we can revisit. And that is the best time to teach those new tools, to practice new skills, because their brain is in a place where they can actually take things in again. So that's when we can go back and be like, oh man, your sister knocked over your blocks while you're playing with it. You were really mad. I get it. It's okay to feel mad and it's not okay to hit. Next time that happens, what can we do together? Yeah. What can you do?
Do you notice a big difference? This is something that my husband and I always talk about, because when he will sometimes be putting our older daughter Lila to sleep and she'll have big feelings about something, or like a book not being in her room or something, like with toddlers, there's bedtime, it's a whole thing. Is there a big difference I feel like for dads understanding little girls and their, big feelings about things? Like sometimes he'll come in and he'll look like, you guys have these videos of like after bedtime, how your husband expects you to come into the room and you're like, it's like a cute thing. And then like, but for both parents, sometimes like Chris and I will come into the room and we'll be like completely defeated after bedtime of just like a variety of things. And he's like, is this how it's going to be when she's like a teenager? And then now my youngest daughter, who's 1, is also like starting to like have her little personality and her feelings about things. And he's like, I just don't know if I remember this happening with with my stepson. Is there like with dads and with and moms, but like the difference between boys and girls at a young age, is that something that comes up already when they're like 1, 2, 3 years old and just like is like a thing that happens?
I think it really depends. I mean, I don't know what your opinion. I think it really depends, and it's sometimes gender specific, but sometimes not. Like we even have some of our own kids that are like very up. Like I really think what it is it's the age, and like less the gender. And it's like some kids are a little more, highly sensitive, which we hate that term, or big feelers or whatever you want to call. Yeah. And then some are, everybody has a different personality. So I don't know if it's necessarily like a boy versus girl
thing. As a therapist who works with lots of kids, I totally agree. It just depends on the kid. And if anything, when it comes to gender, I think to just be mindful of maybe things that have been passed down to us about making sure boys have feelings too. Little boys have feelings, and we want to give them the same type of feelings skills, you know?
I love that. I loved you guys did a video a couple years ago that was like gearing up for bedtime for like the time between 5 and 7:30, and I didn't understand it at the time. I did not understand it at the time because my daughter was like 6 months old, and I was like, bedtime is just so beautiful and pleasant. And now I'm like, oh my god,
the day or special time.
Yeah, it's a wild time. That like time frame of a parent's day is like, I mean, amazing and so fun some nights, and then other nights you're just like, what is going on? So
shifting, we get zoomies.
Oh yeah,
I know.
We get like zoomies right before.
It's crazy. It's a wild experience. But since we're going into the holidays, I know it was like a big thing to talk about, just like holidays coming up. I know you guys, when you guys were doing all of your press the past couple of weeks, talked also a lot about just boundaries coming into the holidays, keeping those boundaries, and then also just travel tips for families who are, you know, thinking that they're going to be going on a vacation, but you're bringing toddlers along, which makes it, you know, a little bit more stressful, especially on travel days. What would you say are like the biggest stress factors for people ahead of the holidays?
Stress factors like with kids or?
With kids, I mean, I think like people are stressing out about, you know, their kids being around their families, being around, if they're not around their families all the time, like sugar being a big thing, or, you know, different boundaries being not respected when you're around other families, if that's a schedule for your kids. Like, I feel like also other generations are like, you don't need to have a nap today. It's okay. Like, it's going to be totally, you know, those kinds of stress factors, or just honestly, just traveling, like just the day that you put your kids on a plane and you're prepping for that, or getting in a car and driving. Like, there are so many different factors that I think going into the holiday season with kids come up in a parent's mind. I didn't know if there was something that you guys think is like a big question or big factor that comes up a lot.
Yeah. Do you have one?
I think, I mean, it's going to be different for everyone. It really is. And it was so different for me 7 years ago, mom, versus now mom of 3, 7 years in. I think they say like the third kid just kind of not breaks you, but in the sense you just, it's almost better because you're just like, whatever, dude, you know,
like, we'll be fine.
I'll be fine. I don't care anymore. It does. So I first of all just want to like, acknowledge and not point out that if you're kind of alluding to, if you're feeling like you're kind of the uptight one and everyone thinks you're kind of crazy, like, you're not. You can have whatever boundaries and whatever schedule and whatever nap time you want. Now, the advice I maybe would give just as a seasoned mom is, when you go into travel and when you go into family things, you can't control everything. And that was one thing I struggled with, where like, if we can keep a schedule and that makes me feel better, great. I don't want my kids to be out until 10 p.m. I want them to be in bed at 7. Bye, grandma. I know your son, we're leaving now. We're actually going to leave. But other times, like when you're on an airplane, I would be devastated. I have through the roof anxiety because she wasn't taking a nap and it was supposed to be nap time. And so I think if you can kind of know, you have your sort of flexible boundaries where it's like, listen, dream world, I want my kids to be in bed at this time, and I'm going to keep that boundary, and I want them to eat these healthy snacks at this time. And then sometimes things are beyond your control, and it will work out. It will be okay.
And I think when it comes to travel, there are a handful of things that we can do to kind of like get ahead of it a little bit.
Yeah.
I think reasonable expectations, kind of what you're hitting on. When little kids are out of routine, they're traveling, they're going on airplanes, they're just seeing different people and going different places, we can expect more tantrums, more meltdowns. It's just part of it because it gets overwhelming for them. It's just how their brains are developing at this point. So one is probably just reasonable expectations. Like, you're not doing anything wrong as a parent. This just kind of comes with being out of routine. 2, another great thing is you can prep our kids, like letting them know what's going to be happening. You're going on the airplane. We're going to sit in the seats. It's going to be bumpy when we take off. That can make their brains shift into this different kind of mode where they feel safer, and that can mitigate some meltdowns too. Yeah. And I would say 3rd, when you're traveling on a plane or anything like that, like boundaries go out the window. Like screen time, do what you need to. You know, lollipops is one of our hacks.
If it feels right for you, though, you know, like,
exactly.
It's just, it's so personal, and like whatever's going to make you feel better at the end of the day, like, do it.
Because I was thinking too, when you're like, you know, some people would want to stay on schedule. I'm someone who probably would be like, sorry guys, like I know I gotta leave early and we only saw you a bit. Other people feel better when they're like, you know what, it's one night and we'll get back on track tomorrow. Like it'll be fine.
So personal.
So personal.
Yeah, I mean, the a couple of things there. So like the screen time part of it was a question that we got from people, which is just like, what's the deal with screen time? A lot of people have certain rules with screen time when you're at home and it's a normal day, and then you're traveling over the holidays and you're in a hotel and they don't have their same place set up or ability to just like go run outside. It's winter. How flexible should we be being with screen time and just like our kids' use of that?
It's truly personal. We both personally, when we're on vacation, I think I used to at some point had like some rules or some limitations, and then I realized I just had a lot more fun when, like, if we were on vacation for 3, 5, 7 days, even, to just kind of like enjoy myself, let my kids enjoy themselves. And when you come back, there might be a little transition period, but you jump right back into it, right? Where it's like, it's 30 minutes of screen time after school every day. That's our routine. Okay, the feeling, they'll be a little bit upset, but you get back into routine. Exactly. It's really so personal. But if you're asking permission to like have a lot of screen time during travel, do it. Like, do it.
Yeah. And hot tip, if they've never used headphones, I learned this the hard way. Yeah. Practice headphones at home where they're comfortable and like in their place. Because I tried it on an airplane once and like it didn't.
Don't do it on the airplane for the first time.
Practice at home.
Oh my gosh, that's not even something I haven't even like thought of that part of it. That's so interesting. There were a couple of people who, when you guys were talking about like holidays and the craziness there, routines. You guys talk about routines on your account. Parents know from having children that routines are super important a lot of the time. How flexible should people be prepared to be ahead of the holidays with routines?
Yeah. So in general too, like our kind of guidance day to day when you're at home, you're in your normal kind of life, like even just having kind of a flow to the day can be helpful for toddlers. But especially when we're traveling, I mean, you're just going to be completely out of routine. And like I said before, like that's a perfect setup for things to be a little bit more challenging.
I'll also say that not only is I know this is like non-specific, I didn't see somebody saying like be more specific. It really varies so much based on the parent. It also varies so much based on a kid, right? So some kids can be much more flexible and we go with the flow and we can go on vacation and we're all great and mom loves that and kid loves that and dad loves it. Whatever. Other kids are going to have a really hard time with that. And if we're noticing that, then we might want to start to re-implement a little bit of a routine, even if we're on vacation, even if all that means is when we wake up, we brush teeth, and then we do, just sort of similar to what we do at home. We have snack right before nap, or we have the same plate from home right before. We can just kind of tailor this to exactly what your family needs.
And then again, prep is another great tool if your kid is having a harder time because they're in a new place. Explaining to them about like, okay, now we're going to go see grandma, we're going to go to her house, we're going to have breakfast there. Helping them understand helps them feel safer.
When you're talking about like being around family, whether it's Thanksgiving or whether it's, the holidays in December, there's always, I feel like, a part of people who maybe aren't around their families all the time who think like, oh, here, we're going to hear it from our, our in-laws, or we're going to hear it from the kids' cousins or whatever. Is there a lot or a big part of that that's just kind of like, as parents, we're the ones that need to prep ourselves for that feedback and, just get in that mindset, and it's kind of like you got to just let it go with the kids? Or what's kind of the healthiest way to approach that season?
Families are really tricky. Families are super complex. It's a really joyful time, and it comes with a lot of the things that you're talking about too. I think one helpful thing is just thinking about your firm boundaries, your non-negotiables ahead of time. Like, what's going to come your way, but you also know if you're yelling at my children, that's a firm boundary and we're going to have to leave.
Right. Or even something like at 7 p.m. Like, it's funny. All the tips also work for mother-in-laws too, by the way. So it's like, prep your mother-in-law. Tonight, when we come over, we're going to arrive at blah, blah, blah time at 6:45. We'll be heading home for bedtime, allow the the upset feelings. Like, she's going to want you to stay later. She's going to think they don't need bedtime. I hear you. We really want us to stay later. Boundary, and we're gonna leave at 6:45. Can't wait to see you next time. And then you hold that boundary. Like it's the same concept, you know.
Even shifted to a yes.
We'll see you next time.
Yeah, I feel like so much of it is also like psyching yourself up, like as a parent, like you kind of have to like get in your own kind of confident and cool, confident and calm like mindset as a parent to be like, no, we're gonna do this. Because I feel like there are some nights where you might stay later if it's like on Thanksgiving evening or, you know, whatever, like being a little bit in the mindset that I remember my daughter's first Thanksgiving, I was like, I gotta go home. Like it was a whole thing. And then I was upset that I had to leave and go home. Like it's a whole, you know, time of like navigating parenthood and like your boundaries. And I feel like it's true as you kind of do this more, you look back on like your first child and you're just like, that did not need to be as big of a stress factor. And, you know, you learn.
Yeah.
Takes time.
Yeah.
Takes time to be confident.
Yeah.
True. Katherine, this has been so nice. Thank you so much for having us today.
Thank you guys so much. And I know you guys have so many things like travel tips and tricks and just like even all of the toy recommendations and things that I feel like people will benefit from just, you know, ahead of the holidays, gearing up for a plane or a car and those, you know, watercoloring things, like all of those things are so helpful. So I'll make sure to link all those things out, and congratulations on all of your guys' huge success and developments with everything. It's so well-deserved. And I know just like so needed in all of these parenting communities and groups. And you guys are like everybody's best friends in the motherhood journey. So I'm so grateful to have been able to talk to you, and congrats on everything.
Thank
Aw,
you.
again.
Thank you again for
Really
having us.
Yeah,
Thank
this
you.
was fun.
Have a good post drop-off day.